The story begins at a high school, where our main character is taking a fitness test. But because of a serious illness in his childhood, his body had become very fragile. He couldn't do even basic physical exercises, like hanging from the bar for more than 8 seconds, doing a single push-up, or sit-ups. His classmates often made fun of him, calling him a failure in gym class. Even the gym teacher couldn't help but sigh when he saw how badly Lin Shen performed. One day, Lin Shen received a package from the school's security guard, which his parents had sent. His illness had drained their savings and put them deep in debt, so his parents had to work far from home to try and pay it off. Inside the package was his favorite Godzilla action figure, along with an encouraging letter from his dad. His dad hoped he could be as strong and brave as Godzilla. Reading the letter, Lin Shen felt emotional. He wished he could be strong too, but it was so difficult. Just then, his classmates grabbed the Godzilla figure, mocking him for playing with childish toys and calling him unmanly. When Lin Shen tried to get it back, one of the kids threw the figure onto the road with a smug look. Lin Shen rushed to retrieve it, but just as he was about to pick it up, a speeding truck came straight at him. He was hit hard and fell to the ground, unconscious. When he woke up, Lin Shen found himself in the ocean, surrounded by sea creatures. He looked at his hand and then noticed a tail. He was completely confused. Was this the afterlife? Just then, a bright light appeared in front of him, and a voice spoke, announcing that he had regained consciousness and the monster sign evolution system had activated. The voice explained that Kuan was the system, and Lin Shen was the ancient overlord from the classic of mountains and seas. The system displayed his new form. He was now a juvenile thunder dragon with a tyrant rank bloodline. He weighed 125 tons and stood 7.9 meters tall, with skills in charging, biting, and swinging his dragon tail. Lin Shen shook his tail and moved his claws to make sure this wasn't a dream, then signed into the system. The system congratulated him on his first successful sign-in and told him that by devouring food, he could earn evolution points. The first reward was the skill Devour, and the system told him to keep eating so he wouldn't starve. Suddenly, his stomach growled. Feeling like he might starve, he noticed a light ahead. Many deep-sea creatures had glowing bodies, so he swam closer, hoping to find something to eat. As he got closer, he saw a deep-sea fish with sharp teeth, looking pretty terrifying. They stared at each other for a moment before the fish quickly swam away. The system mocked Lin Shen, saying that the fish was tiny and he had no reason to be afraid. Lin Shen smirked, then chased the fish and used his tail to hit it. The fish was quickly finished off. Lin Shen was shocked by his own strength, but the system reminded him that he was now much bigger and stronger. Looking at the ugly fish, Lin Shen didn't really want to eat it, but his hunger was stronger. He swallowed the fish whole. It was ugly, but surprisingly, it tasted pretty good. The system confirmed that he had successfully devoured the fish and earned evolution points. It also told him that he had unlocked a new ability, Illumination, meaning his dorsal fin could now glow faintly. The system wasn't lying. Lin Shen really did gain a special ability and evolution points. His new Illumination skill activated, and a bright light began glowing from the tip of his tail all the way up to his head. It was a pretty useful ability because it could attract creatures. So, Lin Shen, now an eager baby monster, went on a devouring spree. The system kept sending notifications, and his evolution points skyrocketed, +8, +5, +15, +50. After devouring a deep-sea barrel-eye fish, he got a new skill, night vision, similar to an owl's. He felt like he was eating more seafood than he ever had in his entire previous life. With 1,000 evolution points, he was ready to start evolving. He spent 300 points on reinforcing his scales, 200 on enhancing his claws, and 500 to increase his size. Now, he was almost a meter taller, looking much stronger. Becoming a 100-meter monster didn't feel like a distant dream anymore. Curious, Lin Shen asked the system if he was still on Earth. The system didn't answer directly, only telling him to explore. Annoyed, he grumbled, saying the system was being evasive and playing it like some exploration game. He figured that since his location was the Mariana Trench, he was still on Earth. But for now, he knew he was too weak to make a big move. He needed to grow stronger in secret until he could reach the 100-meter mark, then he'd show the world who was boss. His goals were set. He wanted to send the land of cherry blossoms into the sea and flatten the beautiful country. Lin Shen was feeling pretty ambitious, so he started another round of devouring. As long as he didn't die, he was going to keep eating. Just as he was about to finish another meal, something unexpected happened. A fish's eye opened slowly below him, and suddenly, a tentacle shot out and grabbed him. It was the giant squid, Architeuthis, one of the deep-sea overlords. Compared to it, Lin Shen was tiny, like an ant. Just when he thought he was done for, a huge shadow appeared above them. A sperm whale, another ocean overlord, swam over, and the squid let go of Lin Shen to face the whale instead. The squid used its 10 tentacles to hold the sperm whale down, and the two giants began fighting fiercely. As he watched, Lin Shen realized how small and weak he still was compared to these true ocean rulers. It hit him hard, and memories of being bullied in his past life came rushing back. He swore he would never back down again. He would become stronger and never let anyone bully him again. Determined, he charged at the squid and took a bite out of its flesh. The taste reminded him of raw cuttlefish. As he chewed, the system notified him he'd successfully devoured part of the squid, earning him plus 21 evolution points. That was a pretty big win for Linshin. He kept tearing at the squid's tentacles, feeling the evolution points pile up. The squid was in so much pain, its eyes were rolling. Linshin couldn't help but feel a little smug. But soon, the squid let go of the whale and glared at him, anger in its eyes. Before Linshin knew it, the squid grabbed him again with its tentacles. He was frustrated now. Was it picking on him just because he was smaller? That really made him mad. He bit down hard on the squid's tentacle, launching another attack, yelling that he wasn't afraid of it anymore. He kept chewing on the squid's tentacles, determined to show it who was in charge. The squid started bubbling, clearly frustrated, and preparing to fight back. Linshin was ready for whatever came next. The sperm whale gave Linshin a sly grin, and without warning, it bit down on the squid's head. Together, they worked as a team, Linshin attacking from below while the whale attacked from above, leaving the squid no chance to fight back. In just a few moments, the giant squid was completely devoured. Afterward, the two monsters just floated lazily in the water, content and full, letting out satisfied belches. Linshin was surprised by the huge reward. He'd earned 3,000 evolution points for his part of the meal. Although Linshin only ate half of the squid, the points were a big boost. Then, the sperm whale gave him another look, this time with a playful expression. Linshin, annoyed, thought the whale might want to pick a fight. He angrily challenged it, asking if the whale thought it was better than him. But when the whale seemed to hesitate, remembering the spikes on Linshin's back, Linshin's anger only grew. He demanded a fight, but the whale just turned away with a disdainful look and swam off. Linshin shook his head, muttering that he'd let the whale go this time because it had helped him earlier. But now, he was ready to level up. He spent 500 evolution points on reinforcing his scales, another 500 on his claws, and 500 more on his fangs. Finally, he spent 1,500 points to grow bigger. After the upgrades, his physique was stronger than ever. He weighed 179 tons and stood 10 meters tall. His abilities now included the S+ rank Devour, the C-grade Illumination, and the E-grade Night Vision. Feeling a bit proud of himself, Linshin joked to himself about wanting a monster credit card to spend his points faster. He looked around for more giant squids, hoping to find one to get even bigger. If he could get another 50 evolution points, he could reach a 50-meter size, and then nothing, whether it was a giant squid or sperm whale, would stand in his way. The system then notified him that he'd earned a special reward, a monster compass. The system excitedly told him he had unlocked a skill that would allow him to detect the presence of monsters. With this new skill, he wouldn't have to worry about getting ambushed by any giant squids. He decided to turn off the light coming from his dorsal fin to stay hidden. Linshin swam toward the deep sea, where he spent the next few days waiting for the giant squid to stop hiding. He figured it would eventually come out, but for now, he decided to explore the shallow waters to find some other prey. A week later, his luck ran out. His stomach was growling from hunger, and the shallow waters had barely any large fish. Even the great white sharks couldn't satisfy him. Frustrated, Linshin decided to sign in to see if he could earn some evolution points. His location changed to the Abyss Island Sea area, and the system rewarded him with an S-tier skill, Burst Breath. This skill let him gather all the energy inside his body and unleash a devastating beam of light from his mouth. Linshin was thrilled. He knew this was going to be a game changer. Just then, the monster compass detected a bunch of monsters on a nearby island. It seemed uninhabited, so he made his way there, eager to find out what kind of creatures lived on the island. To his surprise, the island was home to some of the biggest flying insects ever, the Meganura, along with the ancient centipedes. Linshin was overjoyed. This place felt like his own personal supermarket for evolution points. But his joy was short-lived. As he was preparing for a survival challenge on the island, a group of pterosaurs flew overhead, and one of them decided to attack him. Linshin wasn't having it. He knew he was being underestimated, so he quickly turned, bit into the pterosaur's wing, and yanked it down. It tasted surprisingly good, like crispy chicken. Linshin grinned, ready for whatever else the island had in store for him. After devouring the pterosaur, Linshin was feeling a bit tired of seafood. He was ready for something different, so he decided to try out his new Burst Breath skill. As he prepared to unleash it, his dorsal fin lit up. The pterosaurs, noticing his stance, quickly backed away in fear. Lin Shen fired the burst, but when he saw the small flame that came out of his mouth, he was stunned. It was more like a tiny spark than the powerful attack he expected. The pterosaurs, feeling insulted, got ready to attack him instead. Lin Shen nervously backed off, asking what the deal was with his burst breath. The system, sounding a bit annoyed, explained that he wasn't focusing enough to use the skill properly. It told him to focus his energy and channel it through his body before releasing it through his mouth. Lin Shen was confused, asking if this was some kind of cultivation technique, like the ones from the novels he'd read. He begged the system to teach him properly so he wouldn't get attacked by these chicken nuggets, the pterosaurs. The system insisted it had already given him the method, telling him to concentrate and gather all his strength into one point. Just as Lin Shen was trying to follow these instructions, the pterosaurs attacked. They were pecking at him relentlessly, and he was feeling like a total failure. In that moment, memories of being bullied in his past life flooded back to him. He'd been surrounded and beaten before, but he'd managed to break free by focusing all his strength on one person. Now, he knew what to do. He told himself to forget the pain and focus on gathering all his energy into his mouth. He aimed, took a deep breath, and released the burst breath. The strike hit the pterosaurs directly, and the shockwave was so powerful it even shook the nearby hill. Smoke billowed from Lin Shen's mouth as he looked on in awe, realizing that the attack had worked. He couldn't believe how much power he'd just unleashed. But, it came at a cost. Using all that energy left him feeling completely drained, as if every bit of strength had been squeezed out of him. His stomach growled, he needed food, and fast. When he looked at the pterosaurs lying around, he saw they were all burned to a crisp. Feeling a little guilty, he knew he had to eat them to replenish his energy. After devouring the charred pterosaurs, Lin Shen felt his mouth go dry from all the charcoal. He looked around for a water source, and soon spotted a lake below the hill that had just been hit by his attack. But something didn't seem right. There was no sign of animals near the lake, and it was unusually quiet. Lin Shen's instincts told him there might be something dangerous lurking there. Suddenly, the small island in the middle of the lake began to move. Lin Shen was shocked when a huge ox-like creature emerged from the water. It was the mountain giant ox, known for living in lakes and rivers, and capable of staying submerged for days. Its hard, bony back camouflaged it perfectly, making it look like part of the island itself. Before Lin Shen could react, a crocodile lunged at the ox's hind leg, followed by several more crocodiles emerging from the water. These weren't just any crocodiles, they were king crocodiles, massive creatures from the Cretaceous period. They surrounded the mountain giant ox, starting an intense conflict with it. Lin Shen could only watch as the ancient beasts clashed. The water turned chaotic as the mountain giant ox let out desperate cries. Soon, everything quieted down, and all that remained were the stark white bones of the ox. The king crocodiles, having noticed Lin Shen on the shore, now turned their attention to him. It was clear why no animals dared to drink here. This group of monsters controlled the area, and from the looks of it, they wanted to challenge Lin Shen. He decided it was time to show them who was boss. Just as one of the king crocodiles lunged at him, something unexpected happened. A massive hand appeared from the hillside, grabbed the crocodile's tail, and yanked it away, leaving only bloodstains on the mountain. Lin Shen froze, his heart racing. What kind of monster is that, he thought, feeling a chill run down his spine. A loud roar followed, and then a giant figure burst out, stomping on the king crocodile's head. It was an ancient ape, and it wasted no time in crushing the crocs in the water beneath it. Then, it grabbed one of them, devoured it, and turned to Lin Shen with a fierce look. The ape roared again, making its intentions clear. Lin Shen, a little taken aback, waved his hand and tried to show he wasn't a threat, smiling nervously. But in the animal kingdom, that wasn't the right move. Gorillas, he quickly realized, only smile when they're scared or nervous. It's their way of showing aggression, or in this case, challenging another gorilla. The ancient ape misunderstood Lin Shen's gesture, thinking he was mocking it. Enraged, it slammed its chest and charged toward him, ready to teach him a lesson. Lin Shen didn't have time to process what had happened. The ape came at him with full force, throwing punches that he barely managed to dodge. While the ape was strong, Lin Shen noticed it was a bit predictable. Every time it attacked, it left itself wide open. He saw an opportunity and moved fast, dodging its punch and biting down on its arm, throwing the ape off balance. He followed up with a tail whip, knocking the ape's legs out from under it. Lin Shen prepared for a strong uppercut, but then he realized something important. His arms were too short. He couldn't reach the ape's head, and before he could adjust, the ancient ape lunged at him, sending him flying through the air. He crashed hard into the ground, feeling the sting of the impact. He was in trouble. This creature was much stronger and faster than he was. As the ape leapt at him again, Lin knew he needed to think of something quick. The only chance he had was to use his burst breath, but that would take time to charge, and if he missed, he would be in serious trouble. Desperate, Lin bit down on the ape's arm, holding on tightly, even as it slapped at him in frustration. After a while, his strength started to fade, and the ape managed to pry his mouth open. Suddenly, something strange happened. Blue light surged from Lin mouth, and he felt a jolt, like electricity flowing through him. The ancient ape immediately jumped back, sensing the danger, but it wasn't quick enough. Lin had anticipated its move and used his tail to wrap it up, stopping it from escaping. He yelled, "You're not going anywhere," and unleashed the full power of his burst breath. The force of the blast sent the ape flying, but despite the massive impact, the ape was still standing. Lin was impressed by the ape's toughness, though frustrated that his burst breath hadn't finished it off. "This thing's built like a tank," he thought, readying himself for whatever came next. After the ancient ape fled, Lin felt a wave of exhaustion hit him. He had used burst breath earlier, and it had drained him. But with the king crocodiles still nearby, he couldn't show weakness. He couldn't let them sense his vulnerability. He didn't want to end up like the mountain giant ox. So, Lin quickly picked up the crocodile carcasses around him and started devouring them. He was taking what was left over, but with such confidence that it felt like a show of power. Who else could do this, he thought. The system congratulated him on his first devouring of a king crocodile, and rewarded him with scale strengthening, which boosted his defense. Now feeling a little stronger, Lin felt ready to take on more challenges. As he walked toward the remaining crocodiles, they quickly scattered in fear. It didn't take long for him to realize that he was truly in control of Abyss Island now. A week later, after improving his burst breath, Lin felt like he had leveled up. He wanted to sign in and see what new rewards he could get. His location, Abyss Island. The sign-in reward was an A-class skill, Radioactive Heat Ray. This new skill, a version of his burst breath, was even more powerful, created from the reaction of gases inside a Thunder T-Rex. It would release a superheated mist from his mouth, a devastating beam that was even stronger than before. Lin couldn't believe his luck. He had gained so many skills in such a short time. First burst breath, then an upgraded monster compass, thorn armor, and now the radioactive heat ray. He joked that even Knife 9999 wouldn't be able to compete with his skill rewards. As he was celebrating, a small prehistoric giant rat ran over. Lin had named it Little Tangerine. The rat had a great sense of smell and always appeared when there was grilled meat to be had. Lin liked to share a piece with it because it reminded him of his humble beginnings, back when he was weaker. Now, Lin was no longer a small creature. He had grown to 51 meters tall and weighed over 13,000 tons. With all the skills he had, he felt confident that he could take on the ancient ape again, maybe even recruit it as an ally. He decided to evolve further, pouring all his evolution points into his body build. A flash of light surrounded him, and he eagerly waited to see how much he would grow. But when the light faded, he saw only a half-meter increase. Frustrated, he realized that the higher his level, the more evolution points it would take for each growth spurt. He thought, at this rate, it'll take years to become a 100-meter monster. But for now, he decided not to dwell on that. His goal was to track down the ancient ape and make it his ally. After searching around, he found a piece of hair from the ancient ape, left over from their last battle. Lin used this to have Little Tangerine sniff it out, promising the rat a year's worth of roasted beef if it helped him. With the rat's guidance, Lin headed toward the ape's den. As Lin walked away, the island's primitive inhabitants held a strange farewell ceremony for him. They cheered, banging gongs and drums, clearly happy to see the god of the plague leave. They were relieved, thinking he'd eaten up all their families, and probably wouldn't come back. Lin just chuckled and thought to himself, I'm not here to destroy. I'm just here to recruit a buddy. Little Tangerine led Lin to a desolate part of the island, where a creepy, ominous aura filled the air. Lin raised an eyebrow. Are you sure it's here? He asked the rat. This doesn't look like the kind of place the ancient ape would live. He also noticed that his monster compass wasn't picking up any energy from the ancient ape. Something felt off. Lin walked with Little Tangerine toward the cave, trying to comfort the little rat, which was clearly nervous. It was trembling, and Lin couldn't help but wonder what kind of monster could be hiding in there. Don't worry, I've got you, he reassured it. What's there to be afraid of? But as they entered the cave, a foul stench hit him, and his monster compass still wasn't detecting anything. It was strange, no sign of any creatures. A bit deeper into the cave, Lin heard a roar echoing from inside, but it didn't sound like the ancient ape. Curious, he decided to sneak a bit closer and take a look. The cave had cobwebs hanging from the ceiling, and there were strange monster eggs scattered on the floor. It looked like a spider's den, but something else caught his eye, a beautiful woman trapped in the cave. The system suddenly chimed in with some unexpected information. The ape possesses the bloodline of the ancient fierce beast from the classic of mountains and rivers. After eating something unusual, it transformed into a human form. Lin was stunned. Wait, is this the ancient ape? How did it turn into a human? and a woman at that. The woman seemed just as surprised to see him. Lin Chen crouched down, confused, and asked, "You used to be about the same size as me. How did you get so small?" The woman stuttered, clearly taken aback. "It's you. What are you doing here?" Lin Chen chuckled and jokingly said, "Did the ancient ape refine itself into a little goblin?" But before they could say more, the woman suddenly yelled, "Watch out! Look around!" Lin Chen looked up just in time to see a bunch of ugly creatures crawling down from the cave ceiling. One of them, with a giant mouth, lunged straight at him. Without hesitation, he grabbed it with one hand. The system helpfully identified it as a dead rotten reptile, a huge monster from the classic of mountains and rivers. These creatures were the overlords of the underground world on Abyss Island, and the ancient ape's biggest enemies. The dead rotten reptile tried to bite Lin Chen's arm, but he squeezed it tightly until it burst. "You dare bite me?" he muttered, disgusted as his palm was covered in foul liquid. The other creatures, enraged, surrounded him and lunged at him with their sharp fangs. Lin Chen stomped on the ground and yelled, "Get away, you disgusting reptiles!" But there were too many of them. Some even climbed onto his back, biting into his spikes. Lin Chen wasn't worried though, his defense was top-notch. As they gnawed on him, he could feel their teeth shattering against his scales. "What do you think you're doing, huh?" he thought. "Let me show you what happens when you mess with me." He activated thorn armor, and instantly, the creatures on his back were turned into a spiky mess. The woman watched in awe as Lin Chen took care of the monsters with ease. But as she looked closer, she grimaced at the disgusting liquid all over his back. Lin Chen could see that his image in her eyes had taken a bit of a hit, but before he could dwell on it, the dead rotten reptiles shifted their attention to her. They lunged at her, ready to drag her away. Lin Chen wasn't having any of it. He stomped forward and crushed them into the ground. "With me here, who dares to hurt her?" he said, his voice full of confidence. The creatures hesitated, clearly intimidated. But one of them made a move to escape, thinking it could flee. Lin Chen wasn't having that either. "Did I say you could leave?" he shouted, then unleashed a radioactive heat ray at the retreating creatures. The blast hit them squarely, turning them into ash in seconds, with the smell of cooked meat filling the air. Lin Chen gave the little ape girl a reassuring heart sign with his fingers, letting her know that he would protect her. He then carefully used his claws to cut the ropes binding her arms, and she quickly freed herself. Once she was free, he cleared his throat and asked how she'd transformed into a human. The ape girl hesitated, then backed away a little, searching for something. She grabbed a large bone and smashed it against a rock. Lin Chen immediately thought she was getting ready to fight, so he quickly reassured her, "Don't worry, I'm not gonna hurt you. I don't bully women." But instead of a weapon, she broke the rock open and pulled out a leftover fruit core. She stuttered as she explained that eating the fruit was what turned her into a human. Lin Chen was shocked. "You turned into a human from eating that? Is this some kind of legendary devil fruit or a transforming pill?" He couldn't believe it. To get on her good side, he decided to impress her by cooking something. "Watch what I can do for you," he said, gathering some firewood into a small pile, then using his burnt breath to light it up. Even though he was cooking a dead rotten reptile, which was disgusting to him, Lin Chen did it for the sake of impressing the girl and earning evolution points. As the meat roasted, the ape girl started to drool, and Lin Chen handed her and little Tangerine a skewer of the roasted meat. They both dug in eagerly. "How's it taste? Pretty good, right?" "This is called a skewer," Lin Chen asked with a grin. While they ate, he asked the ape girl if she could change back into her original form. "If you'd turned back into the ancient ape earlier, you wouldn't have had to deal with those reptiles." The ape girl shook her head. "I can't change back," she said. Lin Chen was baffled. It seemed like she was taking it pretty easy, even though she was in a dangerous situation. He thought to himself that if she hadn't met him, she'd probably have been eaten by now. Curious, Lin Chen asked the system if there was any way to help her revert to her original form. The system confidently responded, "Of course I can. I just need to analyze the fruit and modify it so she can return to her original form. And even better, after the modification, she could switch freely between human and ape form." Excited by the possibilities, Lin Chen couldn't help but wonder if he, too, could switch between human and monster forms. He imagined reuniting with his family in the human world. Eager to help the girl, he asked her where she had found the fruit. The ape girl stuttered, "Cliff, pile of bones." Lin Chen thought about it for a moment, then shoved the skewer into his mouth. As he devoured it, the system rewarded him with evolution points. "Nice. 20,000 evolution points. This is great," he thought, smiling. Even though he was in a different world and couldn't meet his family, he figured that if he became human, he could team up with the ape girl and live a happy life together on the island. 2 hours later, guided by the ape girl, Lin Chen arrived at the cliff she mentioned. The area was littered with human skeletons, which was pretty creepy. He wondered what had happened there. But then the ape girl pointed. "The fruit is there." He followed her finger and saw a tree glowing with golden light, heavy with fruit. "That's gotta be it," Lin Chen thought. He stretched his limbs and got ready to climb up and grab some fruit. But just as he was climbing, a pterosaur flew overhead, making him nervous. Oh, is it going to attack me? I'm kind of stuck halfway up here, so if it comes for me, that could be a problem, he thought, looking up at the giant creature soaring above. But to his surprise, it snatched a fruit from the tree and swallowed it whole. After eating the fruit, it shone with golden light and transformed into a human form before tumbling to the ground. Looking around, Lin Shen realized the bones scattered on the cliff likely belonged to monsters that had eaten the fruit and fallen to their doom. This place definitely gave off bad vibes. He needed to grab the fruit and leave quickly. Right then, a massive bird appeared on the cliff top. Its crimson eyes locked onto Lin Shen, and the system alerted him that it was a death lark, a powerful creature with the bloodline of an ancient beast called Yuchang. The death lark's arrival felt ominous, almost like it was guarding the fruit tree. It kept staring at Lin Shen, and he couldn't tell if it was mocking him or just observing. Though it wasn't attacking, Lin Shen didn't want to make any rash moves. He figured he should continue climbing and try to grab the fruits without causing a scene. When he reached the tree, he tried talking to the bird, saying, "Hey there, big brother bird. A friend told me these fruits are really tasty, so I just wanted to try some." He assumed the bird had given its consent, so he picked 2 fruits and said, "Thanks, big brother bird. I won't take up any more of your time, I'll be leaving now." However, the bird didn't seem happy about that. It looked angry that Lin Shen wasn't eating the fruit on the spot, like it had expected him to transform and fall to his death. Suddenly, it spread its wings wide, dozens of meters in length, and let out a harsh, unpleasant cry. Lin Shen quickly realized the bird was about to attack. As it dived at him, he jumped to the side, narrowly dodging the attack. What's with this bird? It was fine just a second ago. Does it really care that much about 2 fruits? He thought. Lin Shen decided it was best to store the fruits safely in the system, so he asked Little Kuan to do that for him. However, Little Kuan pointed out that analyzing the fruit would cost 100,000 evolution points, and Lin Shen didn't have enough at the moment. He was short by about 7,000 points. Frustrated, Lin Shen muttered to himself about how he wished the system hadn't mentioned analyzing the fruit if it wasn't even possible. But he didn't have time to dwell on that, as the death lark was coming for him again. The bird stretched out its sharp claws and scratched at him. Even his tough skin couldn't prevent the pain, and he knew he had to defend himself. As the bird prepared to attack again, Lin Shen swung his tail and sent it flying back. Quickly, he charged up his radioactive heat ray, shouting, "I'll turn you into roasted bird." The attack hit the death lark, but to his surprise, it had a recoil effect that sent the shot off course. Still, it was enough to set the bird's feathers on fire, and it plummeted toward the ground. Lin Shen knew it wouldn't be enough to finish the bird off, though. He needed to wait for the right moment to use a more powerful burst breath. After a short while, the bird recovered from the flames and flew back up into the sky. Lin Shen, seeing an opportunity, jumped onto the bird's back. He quickly stabilized himself and, with a grin, bit into the bird's neck, saying, "Ha ha, I'm now the knight of this big bird." The bird went wild, its speed picking up dramatically as it tried to shake him off. It spun in the air, leaping and diving, but Lin Shen held on tightly. Realizing it couldn't throw him off, the death lark soared higher and higher into the sky, breaking through the clouds. Lin Shen could feel the speed building, and soon, they reached such a height that they caused a sonic boom. As they flew, Lin Shen couldn't help but admire the view. He'd never flown in a plane before, but now, riding on the back of a powerful monster, he got to experience the thrill of soaring through the clouds. He thought to himself, being a monster has its perks. As Lin Shen was reflecting on everything that had just happened, the death lark suddenly sped up and turned around, heading straight for the cliff below. Panicking, Lin Shen thought he might be done for. He was about to be finished by a crazy bird. But just as he was about to give up hope, he noticed a lake nearby. He quickly came up with an idea. If he could use the recoil from his burst breath to launch himself into the lake, maybe, just maybe, his tough body would help him survive. Determined, he gathered energy for the attack. With a loud roar, the burst breath hit the death lark, sending it crashing toward the cliff while Lin Shen was launched into the air. As he was about to land in the water, he felt the ape girl cling to him tightly, tears in her eyes. Together, they hit the water with a huge splash. The death lark, on the other hand, crashed into the cliff, its head hitting the transformation fruit tree, causing the fruits to scatter all around. It slammed into a pile of bones with a heavy thud. After surfacing, Lin Shen let out a victorious laugh. He turned to the ape girl and said, "We did it. We're having chicken tonight." But just then, something unexpected happened. A transformation fruit fell right into Lin Shen's mouth. What was that? He thought, looking at the floating pieces of the tree in the water. He realized it was the transformation fruit. Suddenly, a flash of golden light surrounded him. He didn't want to shrink down into a human. He wanted to stay in his monster form. When the light faded, Lin Shen checked his body. "Wow, I look great," he thought. His muscles were huge, and he felt like a true hunk. But there was one odd thing. He still had a tiny pigtail after the transformation. What's up with that? He wondered. Feeling the situation was still dangerous, Lin Shen stayed underwater, watching the death lark carefully. If it was really dead, he planned to feast on it to gather evolution points and analyze the fruit to change back into his original form. But as he watched, the death lark started to move. How is it still alive? Lin Shen thought, spitting out some water in disbelief. The death lark slowly got up, holding the body of a transformed pterosaur in its mouth. Above the corpse, a green crystal floated. Lin Shen was curious about the crystal but watched as the death lark tossed the pterosaur aside and bit into the green crystal. To his shock, the bird's injuries started to heal right before his eyes. Lin Shen couldn't believe it. The death lark stood up, flapped its wings, and staggered off into the distance, unaware of Lin Shen's presence. Luckily, it didn't spot him, or he might not have survived. Even though he was safe, Lin Shen felt downhearted as he watched his evolution points slip away. He needed to find a way to gather more points quickly. I need to hunt down some small animals or even devour some monster bodies, he thought. I should have taken a bite out of that death lark earlier when I had the chance. Just then, the ape girl shouted, "Hurry, hurry, there's danger behind." Lin Shen turned around and saw a king crocodile with blood-red eyes charging at him. He quickly jumped to the side to avoid its attack. What kind of sneak attack is this? You're so big, and you still have to play dirty, he muttered. But then, he noticed several more king crocodiles nearby, all heading straight for him. Are they serious? Do they just want to keep messing with me? Lin Shen thought. I don't want to die. I want to stay a monster. In a burst of panic-fueled strength, Lin Shen managed to pull ahead, leaving the king crocodiles behind. He was amazed at how much power he'd just tapped into. Is this what happens when you're pushed to your limit? He wondered, feeling a rush of adrenaline. But just as he was feeling proud, another king crocodile appeared in front of him, blocking his path. Without thinking, Lin Shen decided to make a desperate move. He charged at the crocodile, grabbed its massive mouth, and held it shut. Crocodiles are known for their powerful bite, but their jaw-opening muscles are weak, so Lin Shen found it surprisingly easy to keep the creature's mouth closed. However, just as he thought he might be safe for a moment, he realized the situation was getting worse. The king crocodile's eyes turned red, and Lin Shen was stuck. If he let go, the crocodile would swallow him, but if he didn't, the other king crocodiles would get him. In that moment of panic, he heard the ape girl's voice calling out, "Grab the vine." Just as Lin Shen thought he was safe, the king crocodile lunged at him again, its massive mouth wide open. He barely dodged, managing to escape just in time. The ape girl grabbed him and pulled him to safety on the shore. It wasn't the smoothest landing, but at least he wasn't dinner for a giant crocodile. He sighed in relief, thinking they were finally safe, but then the ape girl launched into her usual attack on the crocodile. Suddenly, another king crocodile leaped out of the lake, charging straight for them. Lin Shen and the ape girl quickly jumped back to avoid the attack, and the crocodile ended up biting into a tree. I didn't think these guys could ambush like that, Lin Shen muttered, surprised by their strategy. The ape girl, however, wasn't giving up. She shouted at the crocodile, mocking it, calling it out for trying to look fierce. Lin Shen, seeing how serious the situation was, grabbed her and pulled her into a run. "You're wasting time," he told her. "Let's just go." It seemed like the crocodile didn't take kindly to her taunts, or maybe it was just hungry after their earlier conflicts. Either way, it chased them relentlessly. In the midst of this, the system chimed in, teasing Lin Shen about his troubles. "Looks like you're having a rough time, huh?" Fuming, Lin Shen snapped back, telling it to be quiet. He asked if he could put it on credit and analyze the transformation fruit. But the system, ever the stickler for rules, said no. It was a matter of principles, no evolution points, no analysis. Lin Shen dropped any sense of pride and pleaded with little Kuan, asking for an exception. But of course, little Kuan wasn't budging. "Take it or leave it," it replied. Lin Shen was running out of time, and he might get eaten before he could make any progress. That's when the system cracked a joke and said he could get a skin for checking in. A flash of blue light passed over him, and a cool new skin appeared on his body. Great, but not the time, he thought. The ape girl, still on her game, suddenly sped up and jumped onto a large tree. Smart move, Lin Shen thought. She was figuring things out and using her skills. "Get up here, danger's behind," she shouted at him. Despite being terrible at sports in his past life, Lin Shen had no choice but to give it his all now. With a burst of effort, Lin Shen jumped high enough to avoid the crocodile's attack and scrambled up the tree. Wow, this is awesome, he thought, realizing just how strong he was now. In his old life, he couldn't even do a pull-up, but now, climbing a tree was easy. He shouted in excitement, "This is great." But just then, the king crocodile slammed into the tree with a deafening crash. Lin Shen's feet slipped, and before he knew it, he was falling back down toward the waiting crocodile. Luckily, the ape girl pulled him up just in time. "You idiot," she said with a smirk, rolling her eyes. Lin Shen couldn't help but grin as he thanked her, but in his mind, he was thinking, I can't believe this girl is mocking me right now. They finally made it to the top of the tree, where Lin Shen lay on the trunk, panting. Below them, the king crocodiles kept slamming into the tree, but they weren't getting anywhere. Feeling safe for the moment, Lin Shen couldn't resist boasting. You think you can shake this tree? You guys are way overestimating yourselves. The ape girl moved closer, staring at him with wide eyes. Lin Shen thought maybe she was impressed by his toughness, but then she started comparing their heights. She teased him, saying he had gotten so small after his transformation. Lin Shen, now a little annoyed, shot back. How am I small? You want to fight or something? At that, the ape girl suddenly got really angry. Just as Lin Shen thought the ape girl was going to get into a fight with him, she unexpectedly pulled him behind her and started shouting up at the trees. A giant snake was hanging there, hissing and glaring down at them. The system chimed in with an alert, giving its usual overly detailed description of the creature, a huge prehistoric python, about 70 meters long and 5 meters wide, weighing a whopping 70 tons. Although it wasn't venomous, it liked to hide in trees and ambush its prey from above. Lin Shen wasn't thrilled with the system's usual, helpful information. He shouted at Little Kuan, sarcastically thanking it for its compass, which only seemed to alert him about how much stronger his enemies were. He turned to the python and tried reasoning with it, asking if there was some misunderstanding since he hadn't eaten any snakes before. The massive python, however, didn't care. Its tail lashed out toward them, and both Lin Shen and the ape girl had to quickly jump out of the way. Without missing a beat, the ape girl pulled Lin Shen up and they started running, leaping from tree to tree to avoid the snake's attacks. While they were running, Lin Shen asked Little Kuan if it could give him the transformation fruit back so he could use it on the snake, hoping it would turn into a human and fall prey to the king crocodiles. But, of course, the system refused. It explained that analyzing the fruit would cost a huge amount of evolution points. Lin Shen tried to explain that he didn't want the fruit analyzed, he just wanted it back. Little Kuan stuck to its guns, saying he'd need to pay 100,000 evolution points just to start the procedure. Lin Shen, frustrated, muttered that if he had that many points, he might as well analyze the fruit directly. He accused Little Kuan of trying to get him killed, with all its rules, threatening to file a complaint and give it a 0-star review. Just as Lin Shen was getting worked up, the prehistoric python attacked again. It slammed into the ape girl, opening its huge mouth to bite her. Without thinking, Lin Shen jumped in front and pushed her away, only to get swallowed by the massive snake himself. Inside the python's stomach, it was dark and foul-smelling. Lin Shen realized he was inside the creature's digestive system but didn't feel any pain yet, probably thanks to his enhanced physical state. He knew, though, that if he stayed there too long, he wouldn't survive. He started gathering energy, thinking of using his burst breath to burn a hole and escape, but Little Kuan quickly warned him that with his human body, he wouldn't be able to handle such intense energy and could explode. Instead, Little Kuan suggested he use a burst bite to enhance his biting ability. Lin Shen agreed, realizing that he could devour the snake's insides to gain evolution points. It was gross, but it was his only option. As he started biting into the python's stomach, he couldn't help but think it tasted like eating a pair of stinky socks. Still, he kept going. The system chimed in, congratulating him with the first evolution points for successfully devouring part of the snake. Lin Shen grinned, knowing he was on the right track. He kept biting away, and soon enough, he could feel the snake writhing and thrashing around, clearly in pain. It started to fall from the tree, and Lin Shen laughed to himself. No amount of tossing will stop me, he thought, continuing to tear into the python's insides. But the snake's stomach walls started to contract, trying to force him out. Lin Shen braced his hands and feet against the walls to stop himself from being thrown up. Now you know what it feels like to try and eat me, he said to the python. I'm not going anywhere, buddy. As he devoured more, Little Kuan checked in with an update. His evolution points had just passed 100,000, and the system asked if he wanted to analyze the transformation fruit. Lin Shen was thrilled, but the system's analysis speed was painfully slow, and he had to wait for 30 minutes. He wasn't happy about spending so much time in the python's stomach. He angrily complained to Little Kuan, asking if there was any way to speed up the process. Little Kuan offered him a deal. Pay 1,000 evolution points to speed up the progress by 20%. Lin Shen wasn't thrilled but squeezed Little Kuan's face in mock frustration, joking that it was obsessed with evolution points. Little Kuan replied that evolution points were like gasoline to a car. Without them, the system couldn't function. Lin Shen wasn't buying it. You tricked me into eating all this disgusting stuff, he muttered as he bit down on the python's insides again. The system kept announcing his evolution points as they climbed, and the python thrashed around even more. With each bite, Lin Shen could feel the analysis progress inching forward, and eventually, after some hard work, he reached the final 100% completion. The transformation fruit was fully analyzed and ready for retrieval. After Lin Shen ate the transformation fruit, he noticed it had changed color from red to green. He eagerly dug in, and though the taste was a bit unusual, it wasn't bad, kind of like papaya. He finished the fruit quickly and even let out a satisfied burp. Finally, I can turn back into a monster, he said, excitedly. He shouted, transform, expecting a big change, but nothing happened. Confused, he turned to little Kuan and asked why nothing had changed. Little Kuan, sitting casually and sipping its little coffee, explained that the transformation fruit actually contained an energy that wasn't of this world. When a monster ate the fruit, it would condense its life essence into a crystal nucleus, which was about the size of a fist. Afterward, the monster would lose its life essence and transform into a human. However, thanks to some modifications little Kuan made, Lin Shen could now use his mental power to sense the crystal nucleus and break it with his mind. This would allow the energy inside to flow into his limbs and bones, turning him back into a monster. Lin Shen was frustrated. So, I'm supposed to break this crystal thing with my mind? Is this some kind of cultivation world now? I break the nucleus and turn into a monster, while others break pills to become stronger. He sarcastically mentioned that he might need to meditate for 7 days and nights with an enlightenment stone. Little Kuan assured him that no such trouble was needed. Just close your eyes and feel for it, it said simply. Lin Shen followed the advice, closing his eyes and concentrating. Soon enough, he could feel the crystal nucleus. He couldn't believe he actually found it. The next challenge was figuring out how to break it and direct the energy into his body. Then, it hit him. His old teacher had once taught him how to channel strength when throwing a shot put. Maybe it was something like that, using his mind to focus on the energy and guide it into his body. With his new monster abilities, Lin Shen focused and succeeded. The crystal nucleus shattered, and the energy started flowing through his limbs and bones. He was pumped. This is it, he thought. Just then, the python's stomach outside began to swell, letting out a painful roar. With a huge burst, Lin Shen's transformation into a monster was complete, and the snake's stomach exploded. The prehistoric python fell to the ground in defeat. Lin Shen had finally transformed back. The ape girl cheered in excitement when she saw him, while the king crocodile looked terrified. But Lin Shen wasn't done yet. You reptiles thought you could bully me, huh? Ready to face my wrath now? After a while, Lin Shen had piled up the creatures, getting ready for a roasting feast. He couldn't help but reflect on how close he had come to losing his life when eating the fruit. It had been a risky move, but in the end, it worked out. He wasn't planning on turning back into a human anytime soon. Too scary. While Lin Shen worked on the feast, the ape girl and little Tangerine were busy collecting firewood. Lin Shen used his burst breath to start the fire and thought to himself, it's definitely better being a monster. Sure, his appearance might not be perfect, but as the king of monsters, he felt unbeatable. Just then, the ape girl said something from below, but her voice was too soft for him to hear. She then shouted up, asking how he had transformed back so quickly and why he seemed so much taller than the last time they fought. Lin Shen, still working on his skewers, casually replied, I've always led a disciplined life. Not picky about food, you know? That's why I've grown so fast and tall. But my secrets aren't for everyone. The ape girl, speechless at his response, just stared at him, unsure how to reply. The skewers in Lin Shen's hands turned golden brown as they roasted. He handed one to the eager ape girl and little Tangerine, then gobbled up the prehistoric python in one go. Even though eating its insides had been pretty gross, Lin Shen wasn't about to waste food. As he ate, he got a notification from the system. He had finished devouring the python and earned a life fruit as a reward. The life fruit was said to be packed with life energy, strong enough to heal serious injuries or even bring someone back from the brink of death. But when Lin Shen looked at the fruit, he couldn't help but scoff. Little Kuan, are you sure this isn't just a bitter gourd? He said. Little Kuan, always the know-it-all, explained that while it looked like a bitter gourd, it actually had tons of benefits, like cooling the body and improving eyesight. What's wrong with bitter gourd? Little Kuan asked. It's full of protein, fiber, and minerals. Lin Shen rolled his eyes. You're really something, Little Kuan. A life fruit, and you made it look like my least favorite food? Meanwhile, the ape girl was busy scarfing down her food. That's when Lin Shen remembered she still hadn't healed from the injuries he'd caused during their last fight. So, he handed her the life fruit, saying it was a healing fruit. She took a big bite, but as soon as she swallowed it, her face twisted in disgust. This is so bitter, she complained, tossing the fruit to the ground. But then, a soft green light surrounded her, and her wounds started to heal right before their eyes. Suddenly, all the bitterness was forgotten. She devoured the rest of the fruit and, feeling the energy surge, yelled out, "This feels amazing. I'm full of power." Lin Shen couldn't help but sweat a little, concerned about her enthusiasm. "Ape girl, you really need to stop shouting and banging around like that. If you didn't have that habit, your wounds would have healed a lot faster." Ape girl stared at him and shrugged. "What? When I face a monster, I just yell and the problem is solved. No need to fight," she said. "But hey, why did you attack me out of nowhere the first time we met, when I was about to leave?" That's a good point. You're just protecting your food and territory, right? A couple of shouts and maybe a fight to settle things. As Lin Shen thought it over, he realized she had a simple, straightforward approach. He chuckled to himself, imagining how a loud roar from him would make the prehistoric python and the king crocodile tremble in fear. The ape girl gave him a strange look, clearly not getting the picture. Lin Shen quickly shifted gears. Hey, eat up, gather enough evolution points, and I can help you transform back into an ancient ape. Then, remembering something, Lin Shen asked her, wait, if even I almost got taken out by that death lark, how did you avoid it after eating the transformation fruit? Why were you captured by the dead rotten reptiles? Ape girl explained that she had climbed up the cliff, grabbed the fruit, and popped it in her mouth. Lin Shen pictured her as an ancient ape, eating the fruit and falling down the cliff. But as he was lost in that thought, Ape girl handed him a large bone and asked, what are you thinking about? She went on, I managed to grab hold of the cliff and hang on. Just then, a dead rotten reptile seemed to have been knocked down by something. Out of curiosity, slowly crawled closer to the scene and saw a bunch of dead rotten reptiles fighting with a strange bird. It was a big cave, and although the bird, which was actually a death lark, seemed strong, it was outnumbered. Before long, the bird was overwhelmed and pinned to the ground, with its feathers being ripped out one by one. It was clear that the death lark wasn't doing so well against these reptiles. Watching this unfold, Lin Shen thought for a second, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Maybe I should talk to that death lark? He kept his distance and stayed hidden, observing from the shadows. Ape girl continued the story, explaining that the death lark had fought hard to break free from the dead rotten reptiles, but eventually it had to flee the cave. However, it didn't get far before the reptiles caught her. Lin Shen was surprised to learn that Ape girl had been captured and taken to the cave after falling from the cliff. He asked why the reptiles hadn't just eaten her. Ape girl's face turned serious as she replied that they likely planned to offer her as a sacrifice to their leader. Lin Shen raised an eyebrow. The dead rotten reptiles wanted to make you their queen? Ape girl's expression darkened even more as she explained her past. Abyss Island, where she and her family had lived, used to be a beautiful place, inhabited by a tribe of ancient apes. Everyone looked the same, regardless of age or gender, and they lived peaceful lives. But then, the dead rotten reptiles showed up and ruined everything, throwing the island's ecosystem into chaos. No wonder the cave had such a lifeless, gloomy atmosphere. To restore the island, her parents and some other monsters had tried to find and destroy the dead rotten reptile's nest, but they never returned. After that, Ape girl decided to join the fight to protect the island and bring her parents back. She believed the dead rotten reptiles had been after her all along because she carried the scent of her parents. Lin Shen, feeling protective, reassured her, don't worry, Ape girl, you're like family to me now. I won't let these reptiles ruin Abyss Island. We'll take them down together. He realized that, to stand a chance against the king of the dead rotten reptiles, who had already defeated so many monsters, including her parents, he needed to level up fast. If he could evolve into a 100-meter-tall monster, then he'd be ready to face that powerful reptile leader. As he was thinking this, Ape girl was, as usual, getting a bit carried away. She was shouting and pounding her chest, not caring about her image one bit. Lin Shen sighed, shaking his head at her antics. Just then, he heard something strange and spotted two giant cats slowly creeping toward them. The monster compass buzzed, alerting him to the danger. Giant Smilodon, 8 meters long, 24 tons, equipped with sharp teeth. A natural hunter. But Lin Shen had a plan. He used Ape girl as bait. As the two Smilodons prepared to pounce on her, Lin Shen stomped on their legs, making them trip and fall with a loud snap. The Smilodons immediately recognized who was behind the attack and panicked. Lin Shen couldn't resist taunting them. You guys only come out when I'm not around, but now that Ape girl's here, you just can't wait to make a move. With a sharp bite, he finished one of them off, and in no time, the beast turned into a delicious roasted meal. Lin Shen wasn't done yet though. As he worked on grilling the meat, he looked around the cave, which seemed more like Ape girl's bedroom than anything else. Bones were scattered all over the place. Lin Shen smirked and asked her, so, why are there so few monsters around here? Ape girl gave him a clueless look and said, there just aren't many monsters around here. I used to eat 8 meals a day, but lately, it's been hard to find anything to eat. That's when it hit him. Wait a second. You've eaten all the nearby monsters to extinction, haven't you? Ape girl just shrugged nonchalantly. Yeah, now I just hunt in other territories. Lin Shen could only shake his head at her logic. Your intelligence worries me sometimes, Ape girl. You really wiped them all out? Lin Shen immediately scolded Ape girl for her reckless behavior, telling her that even if she moved to different territories, she had to think about sustainability. If she kept hunting everything in sight, she'd wipe out all the monsters on the island. Right after he finished speaking, Ape girl suddenly clutched her chest, feeling a sharp pain, and collapsed on the ground. Both Lin Shen and Little Tangerine were shocked and rushed to ask her what was wrong. Ape girl weakly explained that her heart hurt a lot. Little Kuan, who had been observing, stepped in to explain what was going on. Apparently, staying in human form for too long was starting to take a toll on Ape Girl's body. Little Kuan explained that the transformation fruit condensed a monster's life essence into a small crystal, and monsters didn't know how to properly control that energy. Over time, the excess energy could cause dangerous reactions, like heart problems or even worse. Ape Girl had already been in her human form for a whole week, and it was taking a serious toll. Little Kuan added that it was lucky Ape Girl was a strong monster to begin with and had been holding on, especially after Lin Shen gave her the life fruit. Panicking, Lin Shen asked Little Kuan if there was any way to help. Unfortunately, his evolution points were far too low to fix the situation. Little Kuan suggested that Lin Shen needed to gather 100,000 evolution points, but that wasn't something Lin Shen could do overnight. So, without wasting any more time, Lin Shen decided to search for a powerful monster that could help him get the points he needed. He quickly opened the monster compass and saw a bright spot on the map, indicating a strong monster nearby. Determined to help Ape Girl, Lin Shen grabbed her and set off in the direction of the monster. He wasn't sure if he could defeat the creature, but for Ape Girl, he was willing to risk it all this time. He told Little Tangerine to find a safe place to hide and dashed toward the monster's location. As he ran, he startled a bunch of creatures, including a polypedid, which lunged at him. He slapped it away, disgusted, but just as he was about to keep going, the polypedid jumped right into his mouth. To his surprise, Lin Shen gained 150 evolution points for devouring the creature, and as a bonus, he got a special reward of 2,000 evolution points. Excited by the boost, Lin Shen decided to go all out, switching into frenzied feasting mode. He began devouring everything in his path, even the most unappetizing creatures, just for the points. Along the way, he ate an Arthropleura, an ancient scorpion, and a Meganeura, and his evolution points climbed to over 22,000. However, his excitement was short-lived as he felt his nose start to bleed. He wasn't sure why he was encountering so many toads and insects, but they didn't taste great, and he wondered if they were really packed with nutrients. But then, a loud roar erupted from the foot of a nearby mountain, and Lin Shen's excitement spiked again. He followed the sound and found a pack of spiny jackals, large, aggressive creatures that ranged from 10 to 30 meters in length and weighed anywhere from 30 to 90 tons. These jackals were known for their powerful bite and agility, and they had sharp, spiny ridges along their backs. But in front of them stood an even larger monster, a 35-meter-long, 105-ton giant sloth. Lin Shen was now facing two potential sources of evolution points, but he knew this would be a tough battle. The odds were stacked against him, but he was more determined than ever to protect Ape Girl and finish what he had started. The giant sloth was furious and roaring at the spiny jackals as it slapped one of them away with its powerful claws, finishing it in one blow. The wolf's body went flying through the air, right into Lin Shen's mouth. As soon as the other spiny jackals saw what happened to their comrade, they started attacking the giant sloth in a frenzy, turning the whole area into a chaotic battle. Lin Shen, meanwhile, was enjoying a snack. He thought the more intense the fight got, the better. It was almost like he didn't have to lift a finger, he could just wait for both sides to weaken each other. Eventually, after a while of fighting, the spiny jackals had lost many of their members, and the giant sloth was clearly tired. Just when Lin Shen thought the fight was winding down, the sloth suddenly gathered its strength and flung all the remaining wolves off of it. Then, to Lin Shen's surprise, it charged straight at him. It seemed like the sloth had noticed him, and there was no way Lin Shen could face it head-on. So, he quickly sidestepped and, while the sloth wasn't paying attention, used his tail to sweep its legs out from under it. The sloth crashed to the ground with a thud. Lin Shen wasted no time, jumping on its back and tearing off a huge chunk of meat. The taste was incredible, but just as he was enjoying his meal, a bold spiny jackal decided to attack him. Lin Shen was so annoyed he bit it right in half with one swift motion. "How dare you interrupt my dinner," he thought. The remaining jackals didn't take kindly to that and began charging at him in anger. Lin Shen let out a deep roar, and the fight was on. He started with tearing apart a spiny jackal, then swept another one off its feet with his tail. He was really getting into the action now. But then, one of the spiny jackals climbed onto his back, preparing to ambush him. Ape Girl, who was still struggling with her weakened body, noticed the attack and tried to warn him. She roared at the wolf, trying to get its attention, even though she could barely move. Lin Shen didn't want to let her get hurt, so he quickly grabbed her and shielded her in his arms. He couldn't believe she was still trying to help him even in her condition. He activated his thorn armor, and just like that, the spiny jackal on his back was instantly turned into ashes. At this point, the remaining spiny jackals realized they weren't going to win. They began howling in fear and retreating. Lin Shen couldn't help but smirk. "Are they calling for reinforcements?" he thought. "That'll just give me more evolution points." Before long, a massive spiny jackal, clearly the leader of the pack, appeared with several smaller ones in tow. Lin Shen was excited. This one had to be worth a lot of evolution points, and he was ready to devour it. But first, he wanted to finish his meal. The pack leader roared, but Lin Shen just ignored it, savoring the giant sloth meat. The pack leader couldn't take it anymore and lunged at Lin Shen, claws out. But Lin Shen was in no mood for interruptions. He opened his mouth wide, startling the spiny jackal, and snapped at its smaller pack members, finishing them off one by one. The leader was now furious, but Lin Shen couldn't care less. He just wanted to eat in peace. Finally, just as Lin Shen stood up, feeling satisfied with his meal and ready for more action, he felt he had gathered enough evolution points. That's when the unfortunate leader of the spiny jackals was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Lin Shen was eagerly waiting as the system began analyzing and modifying the transformation fruit, with the progress bar slowly ticking up. The system estimated it would take about 18 minutes to finish. As he looked down at Ape Girl, curled up weakly on his shoulder, he wondered if she'd be able to hold on for that long. Unfortunately, there were no more monsters around to snack on. Everything had already been devoured. Annoyed, Lin Shen cursed the situation, blaming the monsters that had wasted his time. Then, he remembered the spiny jackal pack leader he had ignored earlier. It seemed like he needed to finish it off to earn some more evolution points. Lin Shen whipped his tail at it, but the wolf dodged and lunged at him with a roar. That was exactly what he wanted. He bit down on the wolf, but it swiped its claws at his eyes, forcing him to fling it away. Despite the pain, Lin Shen tore a large chunk of its flesh, but the wolf kept growling at him. Thinking about what Ape Girl had said earlier, how monsters fight for food and territory, Lin Shen got annoyed. He charged at the wolf, ramming it with his shoulder and sending it flying a few dozen meters. But even then, the wolf refused to back down and bared its teeth at him. Lin Shen, now serious, gathered energy for a big hit. The spiny jackal pack leader was clearly sweating, not expecting Lin Shen to be this strong. Lin Shen unleashed a powerful radioactive heat ray, hitting the wolf dead on. The shockwave from the attack made the ground tremble, and when the dust cleared, the wolf was in terrible shape. Its fur was completely gone, and its body was steaming, with blood dripping from its wounds. Lin Shen couldn't help but joke about his new move. Radioactive heat ray hair removal, quick and effective. The wolf howled in pain, and soon, a few smaller wolves rushed in to protect their leader. Lin Shen smirked. Are you trying to protect your king? Well, for me, this is just more evolution points to collect. But then, he noticed the wolf was howling again, and something felt off. Wait, why is it howling again? Is there a bigger creature nearby? As he looked around, Lin Shen spotted a massive figure standing on the hillside. It was a wolverine, an ancient beast from the classics of mountains and seas. This creature was huge, 50 meters long and weighing 150 tons. It had a powerful presence, and Lin Shen began to feel a little uneasy. The wolverine carried a huge blade and was slowly walking toward him, and as it approached, all the spiny jackals bowed before it, almost like they were its subjects. Lin Shen was annoyed. Great, just what I need, another giant creature. And what's with the giant sword? Trying to show off or something? He noticed the wolverine was staring at Ape Girl with an unsettling smile. Oh great, is this guy another creepy old beast eyeing her? Before Lin Shen could fully process it, the wolverine attacked, targeting Ape Girl. Lin Shen quickly sidestepped the attack and mocked it for picking on easy targets. But the wolverine was quick, and before Lin Shen could react, it swiped at his eyes. He was caught off guard, but he quickly realized the wolverine was pretending to attack Ape Girl while actually aiming for him. It attacked again, this time focusing on Ape Girl, but Lin Shen was too busy protecting her to notice in time, and another scratch appeared on his face. That's when he realized the wolverine wasn't just attacking recklessly, it was targeting his weakness, knowing that Lin Shen would be distracted by Ape Girl. Damn, does this creature actually have some brains? Lin Shen thought, starting to worry that he might be in over his head. Lin Shen was getting more and more frustrated as the wolverine kept running around him, occasionally attacking Ape Girl to distract him. He was furious. I'm a human, the ruler of Earth. You think you can outsmart me? Not even close, he yelled, then whipped his tail around, using it to send a skeleton flying toward the wolverine. The wolverine dodged the skeleton, but Lin Shen didn't waste any time. He gathered energy for another heat ray. The wolverine, remembering how badly the spiny jackal had been burned, dodged the attack just in time. Still, it couldn't avoid the heat entirely and got its paw scorched. It bared its teeth, looking more irritated than ever. Lin Shen taunted it. There, now we're even. Suddenly, the wolverine sped up, leaping off a nearby tree to get higher in the air. Lin Shen was confused, unsure of what the creature was planning. To his shock, the wolverine used its mouth to pull out a massive blade from its back. Lin Shen's jaw dropped. Wait, it pulled out a blade? The wolverine raised the blade high, and before Lin Shen could react, it came crashing down on his shoulder. Pain exploded through him as he felt a deep cut. Blood sprayed everywhere. This thing's way too much to handle, Lin Shen thought, panicking. How am I supposed to fight it without weapons? Am I supposed to fight this wolf with my bare hands? Not willing to back down, Lin Shen bolted, running for cover. What kind of world is this? He muttered to himself. How does a wolf know how to use a blade? I thought monsters couldn't be hurt by anything, lava, bullets, you name it. But right now, there was no time for that. He had to get Ape Girl back to her original, stronger form. The two of them together could take this guy down. Lin Shen gently placed Ape Girl down, telling her to climb up a nearby tree. She nodded, understanding how much weaker she was in her current state. She struggled toward the tree as fast as her shaking body would let her. But before Lin Shen could react, the wolverine leaped at him again, this time slashing at his thigh with its blade. Lin Shen gritted his teeth, grabbed a tree, and ripped it out of the ground, hurling it at the wolverine. Don't think you're the only one who can use tools, he yelled. The wolverine slashed through the tree with its blade, but that gave Lin Shen just enough time to gather energy for his next move. Burst breath, he shouted, launching a massive energy blast right at the wolverine. The creature dodged with a flip, its thick hide absorbing the hit without even flinching. Tough skin, I get it, Lin Shen grumbled. That's a boss-level ability right there. But no matter how tough the wolverine was, it still hadn't dropped that blade, and that weapon was making things a lot harder. Lin Shen knew he had to get rid of it somehow. Deciding to use pure strength, he charged at the wolverine, hoping to knock the blade out of its mouth. But as he rushed forward, the hairless spiny jackal came back into the fray, biting Lin Shen's leg and stopping him dead in his tracks. Furious, Lin Shen glared at the spiny jackal, but before he could do anything, the wolverine jumped high again, this time targeting him with its blade. Great, a jumping, blade-wielding wolf and a spiny jackal biting me. These guys are working together, Lin Shen shouted. 2 against 1 isn't fair. Just when things seemed to be getting worse, a new problem appeared. A death lark swooped down from the sky, spotting Ape Girl in the tree. Its eyes lit up, and it dove toward her with its beak open. But Ape Girl managed to dodge just in time. The death lark crashed into the tree instead, missing her by a hair. Lin Shen felt a surge of panic when he heard the commotion. Not good, Ape Girl's in danger, he thought. He spotted the death lark hunting for her, and Ape Girl was hiding under some bushes, too scared to move. His heart raced. Distracted by the situation, he got caught off guard by the wolverine, taking another hit. Furious, he spun around and forced both the wolverine and spiny jackal back. He thought about the past, how he'd never had anyone close to him before. But Ape Girl had risked her life for him, and now, no matter what it took, he was determined to protect her. Without a second thought, he charged toward her, leaving himself open to attack. The wolverine took advantage, speeding up and thrusting its blade straight into Lin Shen's back. But this was exactly what he wanted. He needed that blade. At the same time, the spiny jackal bit into his leg, and now he was covered in wounds, gasping for breath. But he couldn't just run. He had to control the situation. So, he used his shell to trap the blade and started gathering energy on his back. The wolverine was panicking, trying to pull the blade out, but Lin Shen didn't flinch. I let you hit me on purpose, he muttered. As long as my heart's protected, it doesn't matter. I'm used to pain. With a shout, he activated his thorn armor, and the wolverine was struck by the sharp thorns, sending it flying into the ground, howling in pain. That takes care of the blade wielder, Lin Shen thought. Turning to the spiny jackal, Lin Shen smirked. Now it's your turn. Hand over your evolution points. The little spiny jackal, terrified, tried to escape, but Lin Shen was faster, biting off its head. Instantly, he got 500 evolution points. Nice, he thought, but he didn't stop there. He kept devouring the spiny jackal, ignoring the wolverine behind him. The analysis progress bar was climbing steadily. After a few minutes, all that was left of the spiny jackal was one leg. Just then, little Kuan appeared, saying, "The transformation fruit analysis is complete. Do you want to retrieve it?" Lin Shen nodded, and the green transformation fruit appeared in his hand. Just then, the death lark pushed through the bushes and spotted Ape Girl. Lin Shen quickly tossed the transformation fruit toward her. "Ape Girl, eat it," he shouted. She scrambled over and began chewing it as fast as she could. Meanwhile, the death lark saw her and dove toward her with its beak open, ready to snatch her up. Lin Shen yelled at her, "Transform. Use the method I taught you, quick." As the death lark charged, Ape Girl reached up and slapped it. The bird looked at her tiny hand, thinking it was no threat. But then, something incredible happened. Her hand transformed into that of an ancient ape's, and with one powerful swing, she slapped the death lark right out of the air. Ape Girl stood tall and let out a triumphant roar. She'd finally regained her powerful form. "Did I really transform back?" she said, amazed. Then, she couldn't help but shout with joy, "I did it. I've transformed back." Then, remembering something Lin Shen had once told her, she thought, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." So, with that in mind, she decided to talk to the death lark. She jumped on the bird's back and said, Dragon Brother says we can be friends. She even stepped on the Death Lark's weak spot, practically squashing it. Ancient apes communicated in a rough and straightforward way, so she pounded her fists on the Death Lark and demanded, "Speak up, do you want to be our friend?" At this point, the Death Lark was beyond angry, thinking it had been utterly humiliated. Ancient Ape wasn't backing down. She threatened the Death Lark, saying it better speak up or she'd keep attacking. But the bird wasn't having it. It suddenly flipped over, throwing Ancient Ape off, and then started flapping its wings hard, trying to escape. Seeing the bird act like that, Ancient Ape got even angrier. She beat her chest and roared, looking around for something to use. When she spotted a fallen tree, she quickly had an idea. She picked up the tree trunk like she was going to throw a javelin, and with a quick motion, launched it straight at the Death Lark. The trunk almost hit the bird, but it dodged just in time, cursing loudly. Lin Shen couldn't believe it. The Death Lark just cursed, he thought. After seeing a wolf with a blade and an ape throwing trees, hearing a bird curse didn't seem so strange anymore. Forget it, I'll let Ancient Ape deal with the cursing bird. I've got bigger problems, he muttered, focusing on the Wolverine in front of him. The Wolverine was just standing there, staring at Ape Girl, clearly shocked by her transformation. Lin Shen couldn't resist teasing it. "So, what do you think? Now I've got a backup, and you've lost your big blade. Still want to fight?" Suddenly, the Wolverine let out a roar, yellow electricity sparking around its body, and it charged at Lin Shen with full force. "Oh, did I say something wrong?" Lin Shen thought. The Wolverine hadn't shown any sign of slowing down. It was still fast and strong. It jumped at him, aiming for the blade again. But Lin Shen wasn't about to let it take back the blade he had fought so hard for. He quickly responded with a dragon tail swing, sending the Wolverine flying. But something felt off. His body was tired, weak, and he was breathing heavily. There just wasn't enough energy left. His giant form felt drained, and the blade still stuck in his chest was taking its toll. Ancient Ape, hearing the noise of the fight, started to worry and was about to come to his aid. But then the Death Lark switched directions and dove straight at her, claws extended. Ancient Ape swung back at the bird, but it was clear the Death Lark had the upper hand, especially with its aerial advantage and its tricky moves. Lin Shen could see she was struggling, and he shouted to her, "Don't worry about me. Stay focused on your fight. Even though my body is tough, I can't keep going like this with the blade in my chest. We need to take out one of these enemies quickly." While he was thinking, the Wolverine took the chance to jump onto his back again and grab the blade with its mouth. Not good, Lin Shen thought. Just as Ancient Ape noticed his struggle, she ran over to help. But before she could reach him, the Death Lark suddenly swooped down, slashing across Ancient Ape's back with its sharp claws. She stumbled, clearly hurt. Seeing this, Lin Shen's anger flared. He growled, "You really don't learn, do you? Trying to attack my back again?" He started gathering energy, blue electricity crackling along his back. The Wolverine, remembering the pain of the thorn armor, let out a whimper and jumped off, running away as fast as it could. Lin Shen couldn't help but smirk. "Good to know you're scared now," he thought, "but you've been tricked. My real target was never you." With a loud boom, Lin Shen released his strongest move, the burst breath, aimed straight at the Death Lark. The bird, cursing as it was blasted away, shouted, "Why am I always the unlucky one?" as it was sent flying thousands of meters into the distance. After the explosion, Lin Shen was completely drained. He collapsed onto the ground, exhausted. "Ape Girl, it's up to you now," he whispered weakly. The Wolverine, seeing how weak he was, let out another roar and charged at him. But just as it got close, Ancient Ape, filled with rage, jumped high and slammed a huge punch into the Wolverine, sending it flying. Unfortunately, the Wolverine was tough, and the punch barely seemed to faze it. It snarled and stomped the ground before charging at Ancient Ape again, this time sinking its teeth into her thigh. Ancient Ape swung her fist, trying to break free. But the Wolverine was quick and dodged, jumping aside and using a nearby tree to launch itself at Ancient Ape, biting into her other arm. It was using all four of its claws to drag her backward, and at that moment, Lin Shen's stomach growled with hunger. Good thing she's holding up, Lin Shen thought. If Ancient Ape wasn't here, this creature might have finished me off. The Wolverine is relentless. It's got so many tricks, attacking the weak points of someone like me, and pinning down Ancient Ape's arms and legs. This fight is far from over. Just then, Lin Shen noticed more wolves running toward the woods. He wondered if the Wolverine was trying to buy time for the others to escape. This creature is clever, he thought. Meanwhile, Ancient Ape raised her arm and tried to punch the Wolverine in the head, but it dodged quickly and then charged right toward Lin Shen. It was clear that the Wolverine was trying to drag Ancient Ape away, distracting her to get to Lin Shen. Lin Shen realized it was all part of the Wolverine's plan. As the Wolverine pounced, Ancient Ape grabbed its tail just in time. With a mighty roar, she spun it around and hurled it toward a nearby tree. The impact was huge, and the tree snapped in half. Ancient Ape let out a victorious roar, but the Wolverine was still focused on Lin Shen. It didn't seem to care that it was covered in injuries. Even though Lin Shen had the blade, the Wolverine was relentless. Lin Shen began to understand. The blade was important to the Wolverine, and that's why it was so determined to get it back. Lin Shen, seeing that the fight wasn't going to end anytime soon, decided to try something different. Maybe I can end this without more fighting, he thought. He shouted at them to stop. Everyone, stop fighting. I want to talk. Ancient Ape, still angry and hurt, tried to keep fighting, but Lin Shen stopped her. It hasn't taken our food or territory. There's no reason to keep fighting. Ancient Ape, who was pretty straightforward, quickly agreed. Right, you're right. She understood because of the transformation fruit, and to Lin Shen's surprise, the Wolverine seemed to understand him too. It must have encountered humans before. Could it be that there had been humans on the island before? Lin Shen pointed to the blade on his chest and said to the Wolverine, I can tell that this blade is important to you. I'll return it to you, but once you have it, will you leave us in peace? The Wolverine seemed surprised and a little calmer after hearing this. Lin Shen sat down, signaling Ancient Ape to take out the blade. Reluctantly, she placed her hand on the hilt, but as soon as Ancient Ape pulled the blade out, blood sprayed out, and Lin Shen was in so much pain, he nearly passed out. Ape girl, are you trying to make me bleed to death? He groaned. Then, to his surprise, the Wolverine let out a whining sound. It seemed to be teaching them how to treat wounds. It was using its tongue to cover its own injuries with dirt. Why didn't I think of that? Lin Shen thought. He realized the Wolverine was using soil to help stop the bleeding. It must have learned this from its encounters with humans. Lin Shen quickly explained to Ancient Ape, we need to press clean soil on the wound to stop the bleeding. They both grabbed some fresh soil and pressed it into the wound to slow the bleeding. Lin Shen, still feeling weak, asked Ancient Ape to toss the blade to the Wolverine. The wolf picked it up and walked off toward the woods, leaving them in peace. Lin Shen sighed with relief. Good thing the wolf didn't attack us again. But just then, another figure appeared from behind a tree, eyeing the Wolverine as it left. Since I can't get that Ancient Ape spirit core, I might as well take yours first, the new figure said. And that's the end of this episode. If you want the next part, make sure to hit that like button and help us hit 1,000 likes. And I'll drop the next part as soon as we reach the goal.